Hello and welcome to the third Exo Colony Devlog. My name is Pascal and today I want to show you some new features I put into the game during the last weeks. But before we start, I wanted to thank all of you for the great feedback I received for the last videos. And I also want to let you know that I plan to release a Christmas-related game jam video during the Christmas days. If you don't want to miss that, just subscribe to this channel and YouTube will let you know when it's released. Enough of the housekeeping, let's jump right into the devlog. I mentioned in the last devlog that there's still some work left regarding the conveyor drones. They are working fine and everything, but the player still needs to be able to change the pick up and drop off directions in-game. So I decided to tackle this feature right away and drew a simple mock-up of how the configuration UI could possibly look like. The upper right part is there to let the player filter what kind of items the drone should pick up, but that's a feature for another time. I then jumped into Asprite to try out some different ideas of how the UI could look like in pixel art. After I was somewhat happy with the results, I started to put everything together in Unity. I then just threw some mighty code on the upcoming feature and there we go. The UI is working fine on itself, but it does not change the pickup or drop-off directions of the drone. Meh. So I needed some more fancy code and some magic bug fixes to finally get it working. Et voila! The player is now able to interact with the drone and can easily change where it's supposed to pick items up and where it should drop them off. The UI looks okayish to my eyes. I definitely want to polish and improve this later on in development, but for the moment the functionality is what's really important. So up to the next feature. This video is sponsored by the Obvious Dev YouTube channel. Did you know that the Obvious Dev YouTube channel uploads devlogs and other game dev related videos every 2 or 3 weeks? It is 100% free, so subscribe now and never miss an upload again. You can also join the Obvious Dev Discord server or follow him on Twitter or Instagram. All links are in the description. Back to the video. So, some of you lovely people asked me how the grid system is implemented and how I achieved the conveyor belt item movement. A deep dive into the codebase and architecture would be way too time consuming, so I implemented some debug graphics to show you how it's done in general. This visualization was also already a great help for me when it comes to debugging the game. So let me explain what we are seeing and how the game works in a very abstract and hopefully not too complicated way. There are 16 x 16 pixels grid tiles all over the place. Every grid tile has 4 virtual layers: floor, layer 1, layer 2 and air. Each tile can hold grid entities on these layers and every grid entity can only be registered to one tile. A gray square means there is no entity registered on this tile. Blue means a static entity is registered and green means there is a movable grid entity registered. So a conveyor belt entity, for example, can check if the tile holding the neighbor conveyor belt entity has something registered on layer 2. If that's not the case and there is a movable entity registered on itself, it can then tell the entity to start a movement to the next tile. After the movement is finished, the next conveyor belt will check its movement and so on. The player character is, by the way, also just a bit more complex movable grid entity, and the movement is implemented quite similar. There are no physics in the game, not one rigid body component at all. Every movement and every collision is realized via logic. So, I hope this demonstration was able to shed some light into the dark of this part of the game. Yeah, let's better head to something less theoretically and more practically. In the last devlog I brought water into the game, and I thought that it is now time to polish it a bit. Let's make water 2.0. First of all, I wanted to animate the water so that the world looks more alive and less stiff. So I ran straight into Asprite and started animating the water tiles. That was in no way complicated, but quite annoying. Just a lot of copy and paste in the end. So right before I started to update the water rule tile, I thought that I also want to make the water more flexible so that I have more freedom in creating shapes. What sounded like a reasonable idea turned out to be even more annoying. Now I had to create a lot of new tiles and animate them too. But after that was finally finished, I then put the new tiles into the rule tile and was then able to create cooler shapes than before. Nice. But now the real horror started. Looking for all the different animation tiles and put them in the right place in the water rule tile. That was beyond annoying and a real pain in the If anyone knows an easier way how to do this, please travel back in time and tell me how. Anyways, after everything was finished, I was really happy with the result. The water is somewhat animated and the world looks a bit nicer than before. Awesome. Now, let's jump to the main and final feature of today's devlog. You might have seen this building already in some Expert mockups and video thumbnails. This is the furnace, the first building in Exo Colony, which job it is to refine resources and upgrade them in quality. At first I started to create all the different grid entities. There are 8 sockets or pedestals surrounding the building, which are there to drop off resources to go into the furnace or pick up refined items coming out of it. Of course, not everything worked as it should right from the start, but after all the entities were put together, I started to program the furnace controller. To not much surprise, the first iteration of the controller did not work or do anything. It never does. But after I figured out what was going wrong, I was able to fix it, and here we go. The magic furnace transforms stones into wood. Awesome! Of course, the transformation is silly, so I went back to Sprite and pixeled some nice ingots/bricks for the 4 stone type resources, which are already in the game. Stone, coal, emerald and rubies. Now it's looking better, but there is still some polishing left. At first I put a hologram on top of the building, which shows what item is currently in processing. Then I made a smoky particle effect for the 3 chimneys, so the player can easily see that the furnace is working. Particles are still not my strong suit, but I'm happy with what I was able to achieve. So there are obviously still a lot of things regarding processing buildings like this I need to figure out. There needs to be a configuration UI, the building placement needs to work in another way than for the drones or the conveyor belts, and at the moment the item amount is not taken into account. 5 stones transform into 5 bricks and the processing time does not change if you put in 1 or 10 stones. But that's a job for future, Pascal. At the moment I'm really happy, I have a new toy in the game and I will see what I will implement for the next devlog. I can't promise there will be another Exo Colony devlog this year, but I plan to release a quite ambitious Christmas themed game jam video later this month. So be ready for that. Until then, please subscribe, hit the like button and we will see each other soon. Bye!